couldn't we change the recording to be automatic, like just adding the record prefix?
Yeah, and I want to just have it posted to the channel, so it's really easy. Cool. I have item number 1, which is an aside on the importance of Kubernetes, and I want to, particularly for Chris and Alana, I want to kind of point out what's happened here and get you to think about something in a specific way that Victor and I talked about yesterday. So when we deprecated the certificate-based cluster integration, you may have noticed that a whole slew of feature also was forced to be deprecated. And this is actually a result of us actually doing, in my opinion, something really well in the past. So GitLab was pretty early in terms of kind of recognizing the importance of Kubernetes, and we built a lot of really powerful features taking advantage of that ecosystem, and we were able to do it very quickly and cheaply, and we had all these powerful functionalities that our sales team loved to show off, and to some users they had they deliver real value. But of course we realized that the way we are integrating is not how people want to practice for a bunch of different reasons, primarily around security, and therefore we created the agent. And now we're kind of back to square one for a lot of our capabilities. For example, to do advanced deployment in Chris's world without Kubernetes, it's extremely difficult. You might need to connect to or have access somehow to a load balancer in order to do things like blue-green deploys. To do that, that's a lot of work. But in the Kubernetes world, it's relatively straightforward because you have this thing with an API that controls what happens. It's maybe not largely, all declarative, makes things really easy to build things quickly. So the topic of conversation that Victor and I had yesterday was we see in our opportunity reviews when people are choosing GitLab. Oftentimes this is during the time of replatforming, moving to the cloud, taking advantage of Kubernetes. So to have a robust set of features around Kubernetes is really, really important. And it presents natural opportunities for us to upsell our capability and to get really sticky with the customer when we have features that they're looking for as they move to Kubernetes. That's number one. Number two, more fundamentally, based on what we did before, Kubernetes allows you to execute really quickly and cheaply because we don't have to build essentially any of the infrastructure. Everyone's already building their app on top of this platform that has a bunch of capability and extensibility. So the fundamental point I just want to make is when you think about iterating, when you think about introducing new features, it is really, really good to start on Kubernetes, both from a market perspective and from an effort perspective. They align there. So it's okay to not offer the entire feature set to every single customer. That's not our aim. Our aim is to meet customers where they're at and deliver something quickly. Victor, anything else to add?
It was an amazing summary of what we discussed. Thank you. It's nothing at all.
Cool. Thoughts or questions, Chris, Alana?
So we deprecated the cert-based integration, and along with it, a lot of other, we're like kind of starting over. So what does what does like the next iteration look like?
I don't understand yet your question.
Yeah,
Like-
so what are we doing next to, like, when we say we're starting, I think above we
Okay.
said we're starting over, like what are we starting over and where are we going?
Yeah. Actually, I would say that whole topic around aligning the user flow and picking specific parts about that is the answer to your question.
Okay.
I can tell you where we are right now, which is that the agent is looked after by many, many users. Early adopters even have it in production, and even more serious users like GitLab.com itself wants to adopt the agent. And actually, I'm not advocating for it, so that's important. We discussed that with Dogfooding. I'm not the type who goes out and markets that. I want them to see the value in it. And so there are really now even users like GitLab.com are looking at the agent to be used. And the agent today works really well for a particular use case. That is deployments of pure Kubernetes YAML manifest. That it does brilliantly. But it has, with respect to your area, it has no integration at all to anything related to monitoring that we had previously with pod logs, with metrics. It has no integrations with alerts, how we could surface alerts that are raised from Prometheus alerts within the cluster to be shown inside of GitLab. Nothing like that. For Chris, it has no integrations with environment boards. We are just removing that from the product. And even worse, not just that integration was pretty poor. And actually, for the environments board integration, our users said that they rather not use that, except for very initial explorations. But they are looking for a similar kind of integration, what I call dashboards. And my personal priority is to develop that dashboarding functionality as the next big thing built around the agent. But all of these things that I just mentioned are actually in our sphere. So it's not just it's not mine only. And I think we can build a much better product if we work together, because you might be able to say that, okay, we need to add support for Kubernetes, but you said we shouldn't focus only on Kubernetes for whatever reason. I'm too much focused on Kubernetes, so I don't know many other reasons, but I totally accept that there might be. And then we know that that's how we have to build it out. The same with release. Yesterday, as we discussed this with Kevin, what came up that it might make a lot of sense as well to put GitLab pages behind that idea of how we can, what insights we can give around pages, not just Kubernetes, because we own pages. So we have that knowledge. And these are the things that if you leave it on me, it will be only Kubernetes. If we do it separately, it might be everything, but it will be super slow. On the other hand, if we do it together, we set our roadmaps in a synchronized fashion, we know what each others are working on. Reviews might be much faster because we know that we are working on similar areas and so on and so forth. And that's the whole idea here. And I think that these most, does it answer your question or less?
Yeah, can I try kind of repeating back what I think I understand? So
Sure.
Right now, to Kevin's point, what he was saying earlier is like, we don't have to go after every single use case. Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Is that Penelope?
That's Penelope. She's wondering what's going on.
We're talking about Kubernetes over here.
Yeah, that won't stop a kid anytime when you talk about Kubernetes. Sorry.
Oh, she's super cute. I've never seen her
So
before.
cute.
Oh, man. Sorry.
Yeah. So we don't have to go after every single use case. Right now, we have pure Kubernetes. But what would be an advantageous next step is to make sure that we're integrating with across the different stages that we have within this group. As opposed to leaving it all to Victor.
That's for sure.
Definitely for me.
What?
Sorry.
Chris,
Go
for
ahead, Kelly.
you, for Chris and Alana, for both of you, it's like my fundamental desire is like this, what Victor is doing should be top of mind for you, because it is likely the shortest iteration in whatever feature set you're thinking about is to do things in Kubernetes. It's not always going to be the case, but often it is going to be the case. For example, if Chris decides that he wants to connect environments to something more tangible, not just make it a concept, like the issue Victor created yesterday to connect resource files and make it something linked, or I don't know what the design looks like exactly. That's likely not like milestones worth of work. Is likely something you might be able to deliver an MVC within a milestone. Whereas if you were to say, hey, I really wanted the environment to represent all the servers and hosts and whatever, like how are we even going to build that? We have no idea at the moment. So there's going to be lots of these types of opportunity where we can make the experience for Kubernetes users really, really great. And that frankly aligns with the market. So it's something we should just be doing all the time.
So I think the example, Victor, that you mentioned for the response stage is being able to surface and integrate alerts that are coming from the agent. So that sounds great. Does this, where does this information, it sounds like this information doesn't necessarily exist within the agent today, but is something that maybe, okay.
Yes and no. So basically what the container scanning team did with the Cilium integration that is just being removed from the whole product is actually just that. So they have a pattern for that, how they manage to get alerts fired within the cluster, in their case in as a Cilium policy that was that created a security incident. I don't know what type of issue within GitLab, and all that using the agent connection. So there is precedence for what you are saying, but we have to figure out how to do it in a scalable way. What's the best for us in terms of Prometheus? We don't have any designs for Prometheus alerts, for example, in terms of how it would happen. They're very difficult questions to answer, like where do you want to create that alert? Because there's one project where the agent is configured, but it's very likely, especially in the future, that there will be another project that actually where the applications reside, even both source code and the manifest for that application. And we have to come up with all these ideas. Okay, then where should it go? Whether it's configurable or whether you know what our users want, and this we have to figure out. But after that, the code base, there is some previous knowledge already.
Okay, thank you.
I think I have the next one if we're ready to move on. I just was asking the question because, yeah, I think I'm understanding sort of the point of view, which is, yeah, markets using Kubernetes. We kind of have a, and Kevin, you're answering this, but like just high adoption of that in general in the industry. We have a good sense that anything building capabilities related to Kubernetes will already make us sticky. And as even from a value to effort perspective, like going with Kubernetes related, like kind of the Kubernetes version of the feature sets we're building is like a really, like we're really like that we have like high confidence in that direction, right? Like that's sort of like I think what you guys are saying. And so yeah, my question here was just like, do we have like what's our like from your perspective, like what's our sense of like scale and number of customers and so on?
I don't know the exact number, but it's high and it's growing.
Yep.
Showing industry-wide surveys, and then in terms of agent adoption, I linked Victor's chart. It's still small, but it's growing. It's growing quickly.
I have some more market side data. I as quickly I couldn't come up with the link, but I remember very well that more than 90% of containers monitored by Datadog run inside Kubernetes.
Mm.
And of course, this is a tricky thing because like Kubernetes is a container orchestration engine, so likely bigger users who run even the same container multiple scaled up to multiple pods are running Datadog, but like if you just count the number of containers, more than 90% of them run within Kubernetes. There were some other data as well, but I don't remember exactly what was it. So I think this is the best one, and I'm sure that this was a correct number. The other data is that we started to collect 2 days ago. Is what I linked below this dashboard. I don't know if you have seen it. I know that Anna have seen it already. We started to collect. We ask a question now when a user creates a new project, like what is their deployment target? And I managed to break it down by tier. And there we see that around 19% in the past 2 days is targeting Kubernetes. So it's among the paying tiers, not for free, because yeah. So
pretty high, yeah.
This is
And
these are still very preliminary data, but it's for 2 days only, but we already have it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I've been following along in the conversation in Slack. It sounds like maybe some of those could also, Kubernetes could also be none.
Definitely.
A portion
so
of those, yeah.
Yeah, the none, we realized that that was an error in implementation. I had the last option, which said that no deployment planned, and what they actually wrote out is known. And so we are just fixing that, and then we will see how the metrics react. But yeah, today we have no idea what none means actually, because it's to catch all. You have your next question on, I see. Let me answer that. I think that's a really, really good question. Like, what were the errors? I would say that the only error we had is that we were extremely early in the game, and we didn't keep up with the changing ecosystem. So this meant many things. One is that all our integrations were custom. So we wrote them. There was no open source tooling, and we simply couldn't leverage the power of open source communities as a result. As a result, time just went on. This is issue number one, and beats every other issue we had. The second issue would be that we were extremely opinionated. This is especially apparent with Auto DevOps, which is a huge set of CI templates that probably not many users can use as they are. So everybody has to customize, and then the question is whether our customizations are good enough, and so on. Very often what I hear on user interviews is that they just want to write their own CI. So we should rather have that. So this is that we were very opinionated is the other thing. The third was that we took on responsibilities that we shouldn't have, like what we call the GitLab managed apps was a nightmare to to use, to manage, and everything. They were never managed apps by GitLab. They were somewhere in between, and as well, extremely opinionated. You couldn't configure those applications initially at all, and just very bad user experience in the end.
A primary example of that is Grafana. Grafana running by itself is easy, but that's actually not useful for most organizations, to monitor your production app, to have a single instance of, sorry, not Grafana, Prometheus. Having a single instance of Prometheus, that's essentially useless to any organization with any sort of traffic. And if you were to install that via GitLab, that's it. You installed it. There's literally nothing else you can do about it. So,
yeah.
And do you think compounded with that? I mean, if we have GitLab managed apps, we're being prescriptive on which apps are available, and then we also have to maintain those in each of their individual use cases.
Yeah, there is actually, we are still struggling with that. We have a huge maintenance burden because we inherited GitLab managed apps. Now we are trying to move away from that. So we give more and more responsibility to our users in terms of that, so they can maintain it instead, and they own those projects. But that was exactly included with that. I think on the other hand, that GitLab managed app has a huge value as well. Just the implementation was very poor. Because
we've deprecated GitLab managed apps.
No, yes and no. It depends what you understand by GitLab managed apps. Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have the cluster management project template that actually allows you to install all the applications that integrate with GitLab. Like it allows you as well to install Prometheus. But now that's a project template. So what you will receive is a project. And you can upgrade it. We don't upgrade it for you. You are on your own once it's deployed. And I would still not recommend it for many, many users.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and even there was a big value, which is if you are, and this was a huge value of the whole integration, that if you were a beginner Kubernetes user, then you could just sign up for GitLab, have a cluster created within AWS or GCP, have all these apps installed with a single click, add the auto DevOps template as a template include, and you got review apps, you get a staging deployment, you get a production deployment. It runs for 15 minutes. You might have to disable many of those jobs because they just fail in your setup. But in the end, you got something that works with minor effort. If you decided to stick 100% with our use case and you don't want to configure anything at all. So, but
that's a big if, but, yes.
Yes, but for a getting started experience, that was amazing. For new users, like nobody knew Kubernetes. And it was just this big thing where people wanted to move without really understanding it. That was a really good value offer, actually. And probably we need that level of ease as well, but we should build it on very strong foundation. So that's why what we did in the configure team when we restarted the Kubernetes management direction, the first thing that we decided is that previously direction page said that we want to serve every Kubernetes users and want to have a very beginner friendly setup. I think that was on our direction page, and we changed it. We want primarily to serve experienced Kubernetes users because we believe that if we can set that, we can build higher level abstractions to serve beginner users. So I would say this was the main change in our approach. The other main changes, what I mentioned, is that we want to be really good open source community members, which means that we want to use open source tools and we are willing to contribute as well. That's why the agent was initially built on Argo CD. Now it's built on CLI utils. That's a Kubernetes SIG project. So all these things are, we regularly have pull requests in these projects. Chris, you have the next one, I think.
Yeah, I just trying to internalize these concepts that we're talking about and thinking about it in terms of outcomes too. And so, yeah, I think these are kind of obvious, but like it helps me frame how this fits into what I'm doing and probably what the rest of us like are doing beyond what we're just talking about today. So yeah, just I think some of you added to this, but like in my mind, like for my like category, like environment management, increasing adoption and engagement, because it becomes more useful if we're in the example Kevin and Victor were talking about, right? If environments are connected to the actual targets that users are using, it makes it more useful. And yeah, Kevin, that looks like you wrote cross-stage adoption. I wrote overall retention because I think we've been talking about stickiness and becoming more useful, which is a natural result. Yeah, I think others added these other points too.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. I think that there is one thing, especially with environments, where it can be a huge value driver for GitLab if you do it together. Because I don't know if you have seen it. We have this epic that just goes nowhere, unfortunately. So basically, what we miss a lot is something like a Kubernetes dashboard. I don't know if you have ever seen a Kubernetes dashboard or not. The idea is that Kubernetes is really composed of resources. Like you have a deployment resource that spins up a replica set resource that creates your pods. Then you have a separate ingress resource, you have a service resource, and all these together create a web service that shows up on a domain. And it's extremely natural to, when you run a deployment, to see how these pods are terminated, the old versions, the new versions are spin up, you see the status there, and you have links to get out to log tailing or log history or something like that. And today, we miss this. This is what I call minimal level of observability, which is just the resource lists, basically. That I'm able to say that this environment that I call production manages these Kubernetes resources, and I can see them. I know that they arrived. I can look into a config map, see the value there. I can link out to logs for pods and so on. And my impression is that this could be a huge driver for, if we make it easy to use and easy to set up, it would be a huge driver for users actually.
I want to add to that. I think from most organizations will have some sort of dashboard, whether it's stock or whether it's one of the many things. This is right in GitLab's sweet spot, in that you have one app that actually does all of this, and then it's only one single space. Because this is right now always going to be a separate thing, separate step, separate everything. But it absolutely doesn't need to be, especially if you're already using GitLab for everything else to manage your application development deployment. And the good thing is we don't have to build it. It's like there is literally dozens and dozens and dozens of really great dashboards.
Yeah. On the other hand, I was looking at those dashboards for months now, whether we could just grab one and use it. And I think we need to take over one of them and be a huge contributor that allows us to build it into GitLab, like the Web ID or the GraphQL editor. And at the same time, it remains an open source project, and we contribute to that. And Kevin, what I wrote you on Slack today, that I've seen that CNCF projects that you are looking for it or something like that. I think this is it, actually.
Oh, okay. I was thinking feature flex. I'll sure what I'm thinking about.
I was thinking about the dashboard, yeah.
Okay, got it.
so that's
that turned out to be a meaty topic. Thank you all.
Yeah, that was an aside.
Yeah, it's not quite an
I
aside.
would really, yeah, but I would really love to hear more of your thoughts about it, and how, whether you think it's weird, whether you are like excited about this, or more like annoyed. So, because I know we never had these discussions even before, so it's like what do you see? Whether you
I think it's helpful for me to have some of this additional context in terms of how what the opportunities are and what the mistakes were in the past, but I think I need to give it some more thought. Think on it for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the context is super interesting. I don't know transparency. I don't know the space very well. So Victor, I think it is very helpful to hear your sort of strong perspective on this. And so I think now, yeah, I think now when we're thinking about new feature sets, like this will, yeah, I think the goal is like to have this top of mind, and yeah, make sure I also think this feels like a really actionable way for us to coordinate together too on our roadmaps and directions. And so, yeah, even from that like practical perspective, it's like, okay, well, let's make progress on Kubernetes like integration across our stages. I think that's a really good step in the right direction too. So yeah, I think this is awesome. Thank you for driving, Victor.
Actually, there would one thing, especially for you, Chris, that I would highlight, which is that I think that we should be Kubernetes first and very much focused on it. But like when we discussed this yesterday with Kevin, then it came up that like seriously having the environments board built out in a more insightful way for GitLab pages, that's a natural fit, because GitLab manages those pages. So we should be able to provide more things there.
Yeah.
And so let's not forget the other easy wins, because the other thing that I think we learned from Auto DevOps is that if we focus only on a single solution, we will very likely rule out every other possibility, and we will need to rewrite if we ever have to do. So we have to be very mindful about how we build up these integrations. And it's more that from a deployment management point of view, I was convinced by Kenny when he said that we should use CI/CD for every other deployment target, and then focus on Kubernetes with our extra deployment management functionality. I don't know whether, so I would say that with environments, it might work something similar, because there's the environment syntax within CI, but I have no idea what's on the monitor side. So what gates we have to keep open and have to think about as we build out these things at the same time, while we go very much into Kubernetes.
I added as a topic for, you reminded me of something, which is this leveraging the Kubernetes pattern enable us to do more non-pipeline based activities. Anyway.
Sorry, where did you add this topic?
Sorry, I put it at the top for next time to chat, but
okay,
we don't have to talk about it now. It's going to be a meaty one. Dig into that. So, Chris and Alana, just real briefly, everything GitLab is essentially triggered by a pipeline. Like we don't scan anything beforehand. Does it have to be that way? No, it doesn't. Imagine you have a repository. You want to do SAST. You don't need a pipeline to trigger. You can just scan it. You have everything already. But we don't have these patterns that exist outside of the pipeline at the moment. So anyway, that's what I mean by non-pipeline trigger activities.
Makes sense.
We're gonna talk about that next time. Okay, so let's move on. I'm gonna make an update to the deployment direction page. If you have any inspiration to update anything that's in your space, please do so. And then, Victor, do you want to go through the dashboard real quick?
No, it was really for your information. I know that Alana is aware of it. I wanted to share it with Chris as well. So feel free to look at it. If it inspires you in any way, take that inspiration with you and use it on your own benefit. So that's it. Nothing else. One question about Kubernetes. Would you like me to kind of have some short videos like Kubernetes one-on-one videos that you can watch async? Because I can probably do that. I can try to create some stuff.
I wonder if maybe you don't even have to create some. I wonder if just pulling resources.
The thing is, I haven't seen good ones about it. That would be that focus. So I just added to the next topic my ideas what I would speak about, and it's not so what you have as resources are not that describe the benefits of Kubernetes, but they're always like, okay, how to get started with it, but we don't care about getting started with Kubernetes.
Right. Okay, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure.
+1.
Yeah, sure, Victor. I mean, yeah, I had the same, like, I wouldn't want you to kind of spend your time on that if there are already existing resources. But I mean, if you have like if you know, like you probably have the awareness of like what's the right information for us to know, right? That would be the most useful for us, right? Which and if that's
then there are resources to dig into each of these. I would say.
Sure.
More deeply, but I can try to have really short ones on these. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so now we only have 10 minutes or so left. We jump into everyone. Let's jump into the Miro board, and I'll share for the sake of the recording.
I would have a question, like who managed to go through it before the call? I mean, like to being up to date.
Yeah, we all did, I think.
Okay, cool.
I don't think it's complete. I mean, but it's a start.
Yeah. Shall we go through the comments or how shall we do it first?
I think starting with the comments is probably a good place.
Kevin, are you driving us through the comments then, or?
Sure. Okay. Starting with toggling a feature flag. The question is Sasha the person that actually flips the switch? And Chris, you want to voice over what you said?
Yeah, I wrote that it varies. I've actually, sort of as an aside, I've been digging into feature flags at a customer call yesterday, and like some of what at least the vision is for feature flags as like a concept is that software developers for sure could do it, but even so, Sasha, but even beyond that, like kind of the idea is that non-technical people like product managers, like a release manager sort of type of role can kind of flip the switch, right? I think it's kind of the idea, right? Like it's not in code, it gets in a configuration file or UI or something like that. So I think it varies, but yeah, that was my comment.
Yeah,
I would, for this reason, I would recommend to move it to the release manager role, because even if today even if it's today this Sasha who has to do something for that, it's like he has to do it, let's say, on the command of the release manager, if I'm not wrong.
I agree with that. I think I put this flag in. I meant to say it's a developer that creates the flag. So I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, created. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. And in that case, this should probably be much earlier in the process. Yeah, like the very first step, because that's what they developed. So
This is
and
like
I think
over
it started
here.
with git push, even before that actually.
It's like
because the push
writing
should
the-
happen. Yeah,
when writing
Yeah.
code. Yeah.
it's there.
Oh,
It's there
So that's,
at the very beginning.
okay, I'm gonna delete it then. It's before our starting point.
No, it's okay. I think it's okay. Because it's really, if we like that's good, because it will connect. Even if it's
Yeah.
before, you will see that Alana has some after the ending point as well, which is we can change the starting point and the ending point. Yeah. That's
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Just it's okay. I think. Can we,
All right, going on,
Yeah.
moving on. This one's resolved. How do you resolve something?
oh, there's an open. Yeah.
It's Allison on every call. I think that
Should
go
read,
under-
sorry, I should say, is Allison ever on call? Because I
Oh,
don't
ever.
think that necessarily she is.
Yeah, I think if a team actually practices DevOps, that she is.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think What
Let's
I've-
speak about Allison, because it might
Yeah.
not be the same that we understand by Allison.
yes.
What do you think about her? Like, what's her role?
Wait, so I'm gonna just look at my stuff because I want to make sure I'm in the right spot.
Because I think that
So we're
Allison
talking,
is the weakest persona in our persona descriptions, even though she's one of the main personas for us, actually.
okay,
Just not well. That's why. What do you mean by who's?
I
who's
think
Allison?
I'm actually more, I think I'll fight a little harder for Sasha being on call versus Allison. Because I think Sasha only, so if we look at the one the comment right above this one, Kevin.
Mhm.
Is that that one?
Yep, I think so. Sasha, the software developer, I think she only gets called in if there is an urgent issue. She's the code owner, and maybe she recently merged a change, but I don't think she's ever really on call.
Mm,
With that, I would
But-
agree. That was as well what I added to the comment on the left at the application alerts. Exactly that. Like, can we say that Sasha is brought in when the alert is kind of escalated? I'm not sure what the right word here is. That because he's not on call. I think Sasha is more.
And then for Allison, the application operator, let's talk about that persona. To me, I'm gonna have to click on the link and look. It's still a little opaque.
The way I understand it in layman's terms is this doesn't necessarily have to be a specialized role, but imagine a team that practices DevOps. You're literally responsible for the operations of your service. So it's not just about writing code, it's also about being on call, writing your YAML files for your pipeline, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly my understanding as well.
But then
Could be often
Is it-
it's played by the team lead or somebody like that.
yeah, it seems like there could be an overlap between the team lead and maybe even a site reliability engineer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It really depends on the team, I think, because like if you take, for example, the Git Lab, we have our SREs, but every team has its own error budget. And today we are slowly moving into that direction, thankfully, where if there's an issue with the Kubernetes agent server that's owned by the configure group, then we are immediately brought into those discussions. And this is the Allison approach, who when we are brought immediately into a setup where we have to be there. Even though it's not about software development, it's more about we own that component.
Okay, I got it. I think then these two here and here. Oh, I'm not pointing at the right thing. These These two,
Where are you?
these two right here, I think we can mark those as resolved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, resolve.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think I do at least.
I think we removed the person, which is great. Priyanka is no more.
Yeah, I renamed it to
Ingrid.
/platform and then Ingrid, yeah, up there.
Okay. This is Ingrid. Yes. Okay, cool. That's all the comments. I don't know how to resolve comments here. All right, so what do we do with this?
Could you go to the very right end of it, because that's where most things changed in the past days.
Oh, post-incident review. Yeah.
The truth is, to me, this is the area that I'm least familiar with. So I have a lot of insights about everything that we can't see right now, but here I have almost nothing. And the question that I would have, so what I see is that all of this is related to production. And of course, it starts with the production deployment, but after that comes all the other production related stuff. And my big question that I don't have even an idea, but it is good, is whether we want to focus on the production aspect or more starting with the staging environment and then having a bigger scope to discuss, to get more deep dive into this. What do you think?
So in terms of production, is there anything else that either Chris or Victor would add to this if we were including production, or is this exhaustive?
To me, the big question here is like, I would love to see more relationship to the metrics server, because the only thing I'm aware of in terms of incident management workflow is that you have some kind of system like Prometheus that will send you an alert.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you want to see those metrics getting back to green, and that's when you resolve the incident. And this is that I miss at this point here. It's probably at the incident is remediated, but there like even like a note about it that SLOs are met or something like that.
I don't think I'm following.
He's asking what's the signal for
yeah,
knowing an incident is okay.
Yeah, I see. I could imagine, but I think it's like
it's implied in the red.
Yeah, I think it's implied that things are working as expected and everything is restored.
Yeah, so these cards to me mostly are like actions people take on, except for like maybe this.
I think everything is an event here. So even those ones, that is an application alerts, rollout based on SLO, that all of these are events, and actions are a type of event.
Okay. This was fitting well with the CDF. Sorry.
What you mean?
Sorry, Cloud CD Foundation event conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nothing. I will keep it for the Kubernetes 101. I will just take note of it.
Alana, I'm trying to get back to, or go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, I'm trying to think about Alana's question, if this is comprehensive.
I can't think of much else. That was the lens I looked at this thing with. Because Kenny has been talking about this a lot. It's the things that are, there's like, this is like the inner loop. There's an outer loop here where it's about product analytics and things like that. That's not captured here, but everything else about operations is here.
Alana, is there is in this step is part of that remediation another deployment typically?
If it's necessary for the fix, yeah.
Okay,
so
that's probably a step to put in.
Here are some alternate ways for remediation. You turn on or turn off feature flag. That's one of the easiest things. And two, sometimes like you gotta restart the machine, just like your Nintendo. There's a bunch of those type of remediation steps that people typically write in their run books, which that might be missing. It's like execute run book. It's for known things.
Okay.
I do want to make sure that I add deployment. Can we add this one?
Let's try. I don't know yet.
Okay, I'll leave it to you.
Hey, it worked.
And Victor, I think what you're getting at with like what's the signal is like maybe part of like maybe similar to what we were doing with the options. It's like there's some sort of like check and the incidents worked on, some fix, and then another like look at a dashboard or check things are okay post deployment, right?
I don't know. I'm really not that familiar with this part of the workflow, so I don't know.
Right.
Like it's a confirmation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, confirm, fix. Yeah, exactly.
Which is frankly like can be really complicated because it's not just about the service itself, it's the environment.
Yeah.
So like all the affected neighbors for a service that was having issues, you want to look at your entire pod. The other things that's around that depends on where upstream or downstream from the service that's affected.
Right. Those complex things are probably good things for us as a team to like focus on, right? Like I think this actually feels like a perfect thing to collaborate on. A use case or step or whatever we want to call it.
Could you repeat because I didn't get this one?
I was just saying like to Kevin's point, like that this sort of remediation and like so like remediation, deployments, checking the deployment worked is like very complex. That's what Kevin was saying. And I was just saying that like, well, that's probably a good opportunity for us because it's so complex. It's probably like an area where we should collaborate on.
Yeah, I might have said the same. So please catch me if what I'm saying is not the same. But I was thinking, okay, how can you move forward from here? And my idea would be that where incident comes in earlier in this process, because environments and our deployments are all around at the beginning as well, is how will you know what environment you are how do you observe the given environment? So that you have to specify those things somewhere, that this is how you manage the environment. I think I'm not clear. So what I was looking at is, where is the connection to this incident management aspect of the workflow somewhere earlier in this flow? And what I say is that somehow your deployment needs to be annotated in a way that specific alerts are going to be fired on specific events happening.
I think that's probably where continuous verification starts to fit in. Is you're not you're monitoring kind of, okay, when did a deployment happen? Like what's the before and after look like? So let me see in Mural.
Because I would have two suggestions. One is that we are almost out of time, so we should wrap up. And the other is that for the next session, we could have this as a common discussion for us, because I think that's where we have the most overlap, where it's like this, how do you define the environment? How is it connected to the deployment? How is it connected to your future monitoring? And let's focus on that in the production environment aspect. What do you think about that?
So basically, identified the key areas of collaboration.
Yes, I would say it's a bit more focused, because there might be areas of collaboration even in, especially with Chris in ephemera environments, like for review apps, because you want to know that you have them. But this is more of a, let's start with the production and let's see the key areas of collaboration in production environments. Like this.
I went ahead and just made that one purple, monitor deployment. So maybe we could just make other ones that we've identified similar so we can quickly see them.
I think that's a good